Gordon Brown is now certain to be this country's next Prime Minister. Tonight it emerged that John McDonnell, who hoped to oppose him in the Labour Party leadership contest, can't get enough MPs to support his nomination. We can cross live now to our political editor, Nick Robinson.
It has long seemed predictable, it has long seemed inevitable, but until tonight it was not actually official. Now it is. The Chancellor has gathered so many nominations from so many Labour MPs that when the 308th declared tonight, it became statistically impossible for anyone, particularly John McDonnell, to run against him. What does that now mean? That he is officially our next Prime Minister, and as a result, the Cabinet Secretary, the top of the civil service, Sir Gus O'Donnell, can now formally prepare for the transition from the Blair years to the Brown years. Mr Brown, of course, can now focus on the challenges ahead. One such challenge stemmed from what happened today here in Edinburgh at the Scottish Parliament, when a new First Minister for Scotland was elected, the first ever nationalist to take that job, a man who has campaigned throughout his lifetime for Scotland to separate and to become independent. No wonder they're pleased. Once a party of protest, they are now a party of power, and the Scottish nationalists have one man to thank for that.
I declare that Alex Salmond is selected as this Parliament's nominee for appointment as First Minister.
Even he can scarcely believe it. So too his father, who's so passionate a nationalist that he refuses to go to Westminster to watch his son. Alex Salmond is now in power, but has no majority.
Today I commit myself to leadership wholly and exclusively in the Scottish national interest. We will appeal for support, policy by policy, across this chamber. That is the Parliament the people of Scotland have elected, and that is the government that I will be proud to lead.
This was a kinder, gentler, more consensual speech than the ones Alex Salmond used to make when he started campaigning for independence.
It's a government of occupation we face in Scotland, just as surely as if they had an army at their backs.
This building was designed to make political confrontation appear outdated, compromise and consensus positively modern. The Scottish Parliament looks nothing like the House of Commons, and there's a good reason for that. There's no philosophy here of the winner takes it all. Alex Salmond's SNP may have the job titles, may have the ministerial cars and the backup, but to pass new laws, they need to make friends across the floor of Parliament. The new minority government at Holyrood won't be able to deliver all its pledges. A cut in business rates doesn't require legislation, so is possible. Scrapping the council tax is doubtful, even with the support of the Lib Dems. As for a referendum on independence, that would face certain defeat. I suggested to Scotland's First Minister that some would think he was in office, but not in power.
Well, we're a minority government. We're not going to get things all our own way. We have to campaign and canvass for support for all our policies across a parliamentary chamber. But what an opportunity to build credibility, sustenance, support for the Scottish National Party by demonstrating in government, in office, that we can achieve things for the people of Scotland.
So
now that
picture, how do you get from here to your long-term goal of independence?
Well, we build up support for the SNP. By our deeds we will be known.
This was a day that nationalists have long dreamt of. This was a day that unionists have long had nightmares about. The next few months will prove if either of them were right. Nick Robinson, BBC News, Edinburgh.
The Bank of England has indicated that interest rates may have to rise again to keep inflation in check. The bank's governor, Mervyn King, who published his quarterly report on inflation today, said the balance of risk was still on the upside. Last week, the bank put rates up to 5.5%, the fourth rise since last August. David Cameron is facing a revolt from Conservative Party activists after abandoning his support for grammar schools. He says the system no longer helps children from poorer families and no new grammars will be built if he wins the next general election. Instead, the party is calling for an expansion of Labour's city academies. Guto Harri has more.
And I think it's a great time, school, to think about all the potential that life can have and to try and make the most of it.
So, this is what a state school looks like. Fun for an old Etonian trying his hand at being a classroom assistant, but a bit of a shock too.
One message came over loud and clear, and that is that many teachers want an absolute zero tolerance approach to bad behaviour, to poor discipline and to bad language, and they want schools to be able to enforce that.
In the past, Conservatives could live with failing schools as long as bright, working-class kids could get into some of the best. Grammar schools enabled millions to climb the ladder, and though many were closed by Conservative governments, the party grew deeply attached to them.
This grammar school boy is not going to take any lessons from that public school boy on the importance of children from less privileged backgrounds gaining access to university.
Tonight, a senior Conservative described grammar schools as private education on the cheap for a handful of middle-class parents. The official view is that they hinder rather than help social mobility.
We must break free from the belief that academic selection is any longer the way to improve the life chances of bright, poor kids.
Most of the students here are from comfortable backgrounds, but not all.
It is a good ticket, yes. We have 1,400 youngsters here and they're all ambitious and they all have supportive parents. Some of them are more well off than others.
Many Conservative MPs feel deeply attached to grammar schools and some have described the new policy as absurd, ridiculous, even socialist. Interestingly, at a meeting in Westminster tonight, some of them made their feelings known very forcefully to the party leadership. More than 100 MPs were present, 90% hostile. But David Cameron welcomes this standoff, a chance to prove he's concerned about the many, not the obsessions, as he sees it, of a few. Guto Harri, BBC News, Westminster.